Hello, my lovelies. I'm Meta. Welcome to the collective. For the record, that actually is my birth name. For those of you who don't know me on a personal level, I really am named Meta, hence the Meta Collective. Anyway, unfortunately, I don't have a great message today. The overall theme is kind of deceit and not trusting people in positions of power. And that's kind of been the theme of conversations I've had with people today, it's yesterday and today, both. Let me just go ahead and get started here. The first two cards that I pulled were Community and Secrets. And the very first thing that came up to me was like on a larger scale, like a governmental people in positions of power. Uh, there's something that's being kept from us. There's something that they're not telling us the whole truth. It's not necessarily that there's lies being told, is that there's not a whole truth being told. And part of it, I believe, is because there are some of us who are really bucking the system right now, and we are fighting the status quo. And I know for me personally, there's some things that I'm going through, and I'm trying to fight the system because I want to do the right thing. And in doing that, we're causing conflict. And again, this ties into some of the stuff that I talked about yesterday in the reading about friends. And there are going to be some friends that just, when we come out of all of this on the other side, they're not going to be by your side, right? And it's okay. It's time to purge some of those people that are no longer part of the continued growth the path that you're on, right? Excuse me. We also need to be careful of, again, people in authority. So this is the Emperor. People in authority that are making things look too good to be true and trusting that because they're kind of dangling a carrot in front of our faces, and don't if it looks too good to be true, then it probably is. So just be really careful about people in authority making things look good when they're not. And we're just, this is all part of the transformation that we're going through, right? Although everything that's been going on right now has been incredibly difficult and really frustrating, it's part of the path. It's part of what we're supposed to be doing. It's part of what's going to happen. When we shift into New Earth and when we shift into the new collective consciousness, we are like a phoenix rising from the ashes, right? Everything has to be, it's like a tower moment, right? Like we are right now, currently, collectively, worldwide in a tower card. That's exactly where we're at. And you can't have regrowth and rebirth without a death that precedes that, right? And that's where we're at. Some of us are just now starting to see, the storms and the conflict coming to the surface. I know I personally am, and I'm sure that this is a time for trusting that you're making the right decisions regardless of whose boat it rocks, if that makes sense. This came up either yesterday or the day before. I think it was the day before. And I think some of us are just meant to be on a solo journey or a journey with a very small tribe of people. Like this, the time of having a million different acquaintances who you don't really know and don't have intimate connection with. I think that that's in the past. I don't think that's part of our future. I don't think that that's how friendships and relationships are going to be in the future. I think that we're going to have a smaller tribe of people that are all like-minded and very intimately connected, which also comes up with, there's going to be some partnerships and there's going to be some friendships that are developed that will help fill in the gaps of the ones that you're letting go because of the conflict, right? So there's going to be some conflict with people that you're going to be letting go of. And although it's painful, a breakup, whether it's friends or a relationship or what have you, it's always painful, it's tough. But you're going to find your new tribe. You're going to find your new tribe of people that are all like-minded, and all of them have kind of the same dream and same purpose here on earth, as it were. However, we all have to go through our solitude right now. And that's part of what quarantine has been about. That's part of what everything that's been going on, regardless of whether you're stuck in your house or you're one of the essential workers that are able to go out or people who are allowed to go back to work. There's a sense of solitude that has been happening, and it's been needed. It's been needed because the old you is dying off, and the old relationships and friendships and everything that you had, they're all going through these transformations, right? So that you can find your tribe. You can find the people that stand with you, that are like-minded, that are going to move into this new timeline with you. Again, we're all at a crossroads. That's just where we're at. And again, no choice is any better or worse than the next. Just make a choice, right? It doesn't. So there's a school of thought that when you make a choice to go one direction or the other, that there's a separate dimension and timeline in which you make the choice that you didn't in this one, which is really fascinating. So, say you didn't end up marrying your high school sweetheart, and you always wonder what happened, it would have happened, and somewhere on a timeline in some dimension, you did marry your high school sweetheart and are living, that life separate from the life you're living on this plane and this dimension. So that's an interesting school of thought that, it's worth getting a little bit further into, maybe in a different video. But I like to think that no path is the wrong path, right? Like at some point, a piece of your soul is going to be on that path anyway, if that makes sense. Again, for some people, being at home and being domestic right now is really what is needed. There's this need to get back to basics. There's this need to get back to self-sufficiency and not necessarily relying on others, but trusting in yourself that you can take care of yourself, and that we can cook from scratch and grow our own food and do those types of things and mend our own clothes. And it just goes to show how much excess we have lived in, and that it's time to get back to basics. It's time to come home. It's time to come back to center. It's time to come back into our purpose, as it were. And I think at the end of all of this, and I'm not entirely sure when this is all going to end. I think that this is just part of the collective shift. The amount of growth and beauty and radiance that will be on the other side is astonishing. But you have to collect your resources. So a willow is the type of tree that really takes a lot of water. And that, again, I'll show that card is the willow. It takes a lot of water. And it takes a lot of resources in order to grow, but it's also one of the strongest trees that there is. And they're pretty resilient. And if you can gather your resources and you can be smart about how you do it, you're going to come out on the other side victorious. Okay? I keep dropping all my cards. Sorry about that. A lot of us are just exhausted. We're exhausted with the way that things had been, with the status quo. And it's not sustainable anymore. And it's coming through spiritually, mentally, emotionally for all of us. And so we have to have a bit of just ordinary, ordinary, mundane, boring lives. I was just talking to a friend of mine who's quite a bit younger than I am, about a time before we had computers in our hands, let alone in our homes. And the only way to keep in contact with people was through telephone and letter writing. And most of the time it was long distance phone calls. And, I have so many friends who live overseas that if I didn't have a smartphone or a computer, I wouldn't be able to keep in contact with them the way that I do. And so I think in some ways, all of that excess has caused us to really just fall away from what our true calling is. And so by coming back to ordinary, coming back to basics, coming back to our center, that's where we're going to find That's where we're going to find what our purpose is and what our soul is calling out for. For some of us, this is a crazy ass adventure. I know it is for me, because there's so much in the future that's terrifying but exciting. We were talking. I was talking with Queen of Hearts, and her daughter says nervous-sighted. That's her. I'm nervous-sighted about something, and I get that. But we can't be in fear. We can't be in fear of the unknown, because the unknown right now, I think there's something so beautiful on the other side of all of this. And despite the conflict, which there's just bound to be conflict when we're in a situation that we are like we are worldwide, but I think it's opening up channels to have the conflict with the people on the outside they're not part of our journey anymore. We can't keep dragging all this baggage with us that's no longer serving us, that doesn't fit with where we're going. I'm not going to pack a parka and big chunky boots to go to Bali, right? I'm not going to pack, all this extra stuff to go to the paradise that I'm going to, right? And that's what I feel like New Earth is. I feel like for those of us that are shifting consciousness, that's just where we're headed. We're headed to something so much more beautiful, and we don't need to take all of this heavy 3D shit with us. It's just time to let it go. I'm sorry the message isn't all bunny fluff and unicorns, and but that's just where it's at. And there's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of conflict in the people I've talked with. There's conflict in friendships and relationships and work. There's conflict. And when we learn to work through that and come through it on the other side victorious, and not from a place that's coming from ego, then I think that we'll be better off for that. But currently, unfortunately, we can't trust the people who are in positions of authority right now. We can't trust them because they want to save face or they want to make money. And that's where we're at. And like I said, I wish it was a better message. But just know, there are those of us in the collective who are like-minded, and you can reach out to any one of us. There's millions of us. You can find us online, reach out, DM me, I'd love to chat and get to know new people and, have crazy out there conversations about where we're at. So that's where we're at today. I love you all. Thanks for being with me today, and I'll catch you on the flip side.